reactor. Working 3-hour shifts, 400 men built a new concrete foundation. What they could do nothing about was the radiation that had already escaped. At 9 a.m. Monday, here in Sweden, scientists at a nuclear power plant discovered unusually high levels of radiation. But it was not until that evening that Moscow informed the world about the accident at Chernobyl.
Oh, there's no doubt the world could have been informed earlier and should have been informed earlier. The Soviets, of course, are reluctant to inform public of accidents until they understand them, because the one thing they fear more than anything is panic.
Valery Legasov of the Kurchatov Institute of Atomic Energy arrived on the day after the accident as a member of the government investigating committee.
The plant at the time didn't have systems to assess the scale of the accident consequences. This early information would have been erroneous, and it would have led to excess panic or excess optimism. That is why it was necessary to use 1.5 days to assess the situation and to inform the world.
The Soviets also drew criticism for the delay in telling their own people. 3 kilometers from the burning reactor was the town of Pripyat, the instant city built to house the workers of the power plant. The morning after the accident, there was no warning given. Children played outside as usual.
Well, I think they tried to hide the accident from us. That's really what I think. They could have told us to close the windows and not let the children go to school. That's what they should have done, but nobody did that or acted like that.
We have no preparation for early notification. It is necessary to be prepared, because all our intention was directed to the how to work with this problem.
Fortunately, the radiation levels near the plant were relatively low at first, because the explosion carried the radioactive material 2/3 of a mile straight up, well over the heads of the families in Pripyat. But 36 hours after the accident, when the levels of radiation continued to rise, an order was given to evacuate. 1,100 city buses from Kiev took only 3 hours to carry the people away. As the Soviet footage shows, the families left most of their possessions behind, as if they expected to come back soon. For years, they had been assured the plant was safe. In fact, just 2 months before, a Soviet official was quoted saying the odds of a meltdown at a nuclear plant were 1 in 10,000 years. And so when the residents of Pripyat were told to leave, it seemed to make little sense, as one Soviet reporter found.
It was difficult for them to understand. Why move when the flowers were still blooming outside? The corn was still growing. There was no fire, no flood. It wasn't an earthquake. It was some sort of unknown disaster.
In all, 135,000 people were eventually evacuated from a 30-kilometer zone surrounding the power plant. When we arrived in the evacuated village of Chernobyl, workers were using it as an important staging center for the cleanup operations. We transferred to a bus, which will never leave a special 10-kilometer zone around the reactor. Just one more precaution against the spread of radiation.
Now it's at least twice as high as when we were driving up 10 kilometers.
That's right.
Back.
It's about 5 times the background.
5 times background, still safe for us.
Still safe. But I wouldn't want to have my children living here.
Mm-hmm.
Just this area to the left. Just it looks like a field. This is the place where primarily forest was.
The trees had absorbed the radiation. They were cut down and buried in concrete-lined pits. And there it was. Reactor number 4, now a massive structure of metal and concrete. At this spot, shortly after the moment of explosion, the radiation reading was 3,000 rems per hour. 15,000 times greater than the normal exposure of most people in a year.
Now that's the sarcophagus to the left, isn't it? And so you've covered it.
At that level,
completely.
radiation would have overwhelmed the nervous system of anyone this close and killed them within 20 to 60 minutes.
Reactor unit 5 on the 3 on the right. Well, not only the gases got out, but 3% of the solids of that reactor got out, which is a large fraction of a 2,000-ton device. And that was a spread everywhere downwind. So it would, great big lumps of particulate matter were settling all over the place. They had to physically clean that up. Now, the first thing they did was they, of course, tried to get robots. And then they found that the robots wouldn't work because they were built of transistors, and transistors don't like radiation. And so the robots crashed. So then they had to get volunteer soldiers to come in at 90 seconds apiece to shovel away the most dangerous parts and put them away.
It was one of the biggest peacetime undertakings the Soviets had ever experienced. 50,000 workers were rushed in, lured by offers of increased wages to work in areas where radiation was high. They prepared as if they were going to war. The danger was very real. All around them were radioactive substances like cesium-137, releasing invisible rays, nuclear particles like alpha, beta, and gamma rays, electromagnetic energy that are the most dangerous. Gamma rays can penetrate the body. In large doses, they all are capable of killing a person. In a lesser dose, they can trigger a cancer years after exposure. Nothing could be considered safe. 60,000 buildings had to be washed. A special solution was sprayed throughout the danger zone to keep radioactive dust from blowing and further contaminating the area. Anything that was exposed near the plant and could be moved was buried. Trucks, cars, and even the contaminated earth. Later it would be charged that the cleanup all happened much too quickly, that the workers were unnecessarily exposed to high levels of radiation. The Soviets deny the charge, but no one denies the danger. A Ukrainian documentary which told the story of the cleanup described this as a place where danger became a way of life.
This is heroism. Without mercy for oneself. It's a real man's job, a real man's duty, to stand in the Chernobyl ranks.
The cameraman who made the documentary died within a year of the accident. The cause of death was reported to be radiation sickness. Nearly 3 years after the disaster, the cleanup continues without pause. The Soviets are aware that some of the radioactive material released from the reactor will last for years. Cesium-137, which concentrates in the muscle tissue, will be around for at least 30 years. In lesser quantity, strontium-90, which can damage bone tissue, will last for at least 28 years. The Soviets do not want to leave this radioactive material in the environment. The most dangerous concentration of the substances was in the reactor itself. Because the Soviet authorities still wanted to generate power from 3 other reactors at the complex, radioactive reactor number 4 had to be sealed off completely. An army of workers using 340,000 cubic meters of concrete and 3,000 tons of steel constructed a